On today's show, the final installment of our over-under series with Robby Kalland, talking about the Southeast Division. Of course, that includes the Hawks, as well as the Heat, the Magic, the Wizards, and, of course, the Hornets. We'll get into all of that and more right now.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 1827 of the Locked On Hawks podcast. I am your host, Brad Rowland, coming to you on the day before the season begins. It's Tuesday evening into Wednesday, and I want to encourage you at the top of the podcast, as I always do, to make it your first listen each and every day. Please check out this podcast and subscribe to Locked On Hawks anywhere you find your podcasts. We're on Apple, we're on Spotify, we're on Overcast, and Amazon Music. We're also on YouTube. Please like this video as you are watching it on that platform. Plus, leave your favorite comments, as well as subscribing to the podcast and telling your friends about the show. And it's kind of a bonus episode, actually, at least it ended up being. I have been talking to Robby Kalland, a good friend of the podcast, pretty much the last month plus, about over-unders across the entire league, division by division. We've done 5 installments. This is the last one. It's number 6, and it's involving the Southeast Division. I waited longer than I wanted to because of scheduling snafus and hurricanes and all that fun stuff. So basically, it's a bonus episode that's arriving the day before the season is now set to begin for the Hawks. In fact, after I post this podcast, I'll be posting my final thoughts and predictions also at the same time. So all that said, it still was a conversation that we recorded a few days ago, actually. So keep that in mind as you're listening to it. Nothing should have changed too much, but that's why I'm wearing different clothes if you're watching on YouTube, et cetera, et cetera. But we talk about the Magic and the Heat, of course, the Hawks in the middle of the conversation, plus the Hornets and the Wizards at the end of the podcast. And I want to thank Robby for all of his insight throughout the process. So if you are missing any of those, all of the other 5 episodes are available in your same podcast feed right now. Also, I should plug the top of the show. I talked to Tyler Jones a few days ago in 2-part fashion. I also did a live kind of reaction to Jalen Johnson and his extension yesterday. So it's been very, very busy on the show the last couple of days. And if you're just finding the Hawks again after a long summer, I spent a lot of time with my friend Glenn Willis of ATL 29 talking about the entire roster in player-by-player fashion. So the entire archive is open for you right now. Catch up, listen, prepare for the season as the Hawks open up. And on Wednesday, I will stop rambling now. And here we go with myself and Robby and the Southeast Division. I am joined again by my friend Robby Kalland, right under the wire, ladies and gentlemen, with the final division of over-unders. Robby, it's the Southeast. It's the main event. How are you?
That's right. Everybody in the NBA calls the Southeast the main event.
This is the only podcast where we would have Southeast last in the divisions. I know some people that are our friends do like divisional capsules and things, and Southeast it's always like first,
always
second.
First. Always first. But that's also because of that's also alphabetical. If you're doing that. Hawks come
It's
first.
alphabetical, and if you cover the Hawks, you save the Hawks to the end. And look, we're not going to do an entire half hour on the Hawks like I do the rest of my podcast. We'll do the Hawks in the order that they come on this podcast. We'll keep our form, and as such, we'll go to the top of the division when it comes to the over-unders, and that's the Orlando Magic. Orlando, changing of the guard this year. It's been Miami. This year, it's Orlando as the favorite. They're at 47.5 wins, according to our friends at FanDuel. Last year, 47 wins, so basically the exact same number as this. They're interesting. They brought in KCP. That's the big headliner there. Otherwise, they didn't do much, but it's a young team, Robby, and here's an opportunity to deliver the line you always deliver about how growth is not linear. Here we are.
Growth isn't linear, but I've got it over here. Pretty firm. This is a play for me. I think people are kind of underestimating how good KCP is and has been in Denver. He was one of the best on-ball defenders in the league last year. He kind of made a lot of that stuff go on the periphery in terms of what they did defensively. And then also just the way he spaces the floor, his understanding of space, his understanding of creating space for bigs is I think, going to be very helpful with a guy like Paolo Banchero, who obviously plays very differently than Jokic, a much more athletic and explosive style of play. But I think he can kind of bring some of those same elements, the little dribble handoffs, the things that he ran with Jokic and some of that stuff that he could maybe bring to expand what Paolo can do, especially as kind of a facilitator and a creator for others. I think bringing that kind of offense in to help, but really it's just like, I think Franz was pretty bad offensively last year in terms of shooting the basketball. Like, it was bad. If he just kind of gets back to what his baseline had been first couple years in the league, like, I think they're even better offensively. Jonathan Isaac coming back. You mentioned they don't really make any moves, but he was really good defensively at the end of the year. He fit in well with what they do offensively because obviously he's not a guy that you feed to get buckets, but as a rebounder, as a role guy, as a lob threat, he is quite good. And I think defensively they could be even better next year with the additions of KCP and a full season of Jonathan Isaac. They brought everybody back. I think it's really underrated moving Gary Harris to the bench and having his presence with that unit. Last year, this team was like their plus minus with Gary Harris was really big. And like the on off was pretty stark just by having like a steady hand, another guy that can like settle the offense and get them stuff. And like he's kind of been in and out of the lineup some, but when he's healthy and when KCP's healthy, like you should have 48 minutes of really good 2-guard play, which is not something they've had. And so you can put Gary Harris next to Cole Anthony and you can put KCP next to Jalen Suggs and just kind of like give those guys that little bit of structure because Suggs is an explosive athlete, kind of coming into his own as guard still on the offensive end. Cole Anthony, obviously kind of the microwave guy. But like, I think that is really going to expand what they're able to do offensively, make them a more consistent offensive team. Because that was always the thing last year. They'd go through spurts where they look fantastic, but they really relied on their defense a lot to get them wins because they would go ice cold. I think the offense will look a bit better. I'm not going to sit here. They're not going to become, the Pacers or the Nuggets or one of these teams that's just a juggernaut. But I do think they could be kind of middle of the pack offensively in the regular season, which would be kind of a step forward for them. Like they could be kind of like top half of the league. And if they're that and that defense holds true, which I think it will, because adding KCP should only help on that end, I think this is an over for me and reasonably comfortably so. I think they could be challenging for that 4 spot in the East.
Yeah, I'm a little lower than you, but still, I nothing that you said is unreasonable whatsoever. Like it's more that the offense is. I'm not sold on the offense still. Like the defense, I buy for sure. KCP helps them there even more. Than they don't really need that, but he just have more of it. He does give them a shooter that will get closed out on. There's a debate on like how good of a shooter KCP is, but he gets guarded like one, which helps.
Right. That's sometimes as big as anything. Like
right. And you mentioned Franz. Like there's a whole conversation that we won't have about his max contract, which I didn't love, even as a Michigan guy. But Franz did actually improve his 2-point shooting a lot last year, and his 3-point shooting went off a cliff. So it's like if you can marry those two things, that's the hope for Orlando there. Powell's a good player already, of course. Yeah, I mean, I have them right around this range, so it's a pass for me, but maybe I lean over if I have to choose one. We both mutually believe Wendell Carter Jr. He missed a bunch of time last year. He's the one guy that kind of missed time for them. He just signed again.
Him and Isaac. So like if you can get more out of those two. But they also have just like depth. They have like a bunch of, they can also make moves. Like they're
very deep and they might buy. Yeah,
they can
have
buy.
Those
like that's
guys.
the thing. They have Anthony Black is just there. They re-signed Goga. They re-signed Mo. I would be surprised if they moved Mo because he's the brother of your star. But Goga was like legit very good for them last year, and he signed a pretty team friend this summer. And like they could flip him and a young guy for like a legit helpful player if that's out there, and they can make it happen. Like I like this Magic team, and I also like we talked about the growth isn't linear thing, and that's always my shtick. But like I don't think Paolo's just gonna keep getting better. He's a monster. I love that guy's game. Like I don't know if there's necessarily like a massive leap to come because he's already an all-star, but like I just think he kind of keeps refining what he does and getting a little bit better. I love that dude's game.
Yeah, if they take more threes this year, I kind of see that too. They did lead the league in free throw attempts last year, which probably sustains. Like they already have guys that can do that.
Right.
Powell and Franz both get to the line. So yeah, I'm more tepid than you, but certainly wouldn't be running out to bet the under on the Magic at 47.5.
Also, they play the Wizards and the Hornets a lot.
This whole division, other than at least
the
bottom
games,
teams of the division.
8 games against those two is helpful.
Yeah, it's kind. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, and the season is now here in a big way. You can begin the season with a big return as well at FanDuel Sportsbook. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook, and you can check out a ton of information sets from latest stats to live play-by-play and so much more all on the same page where you're placing your bets at FanDuel Sportsbook. You also begin with a big offer at FanDuel. That's $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet at FanDuel. You should also know that FanDuel Sportsbook is really easy to use in the app in particular, and everything that you actually want or looking for in the sports betting space, from over-unders to point spreads to money lines to player props. They have live betting, same-game parlays, future bets, and so much more. The app is safe. It's secure. They cover the entire range of sports as well. NBA, of course, is first and foremost on this podcast. That's there at FanDuel as well. WNBA, NFL, college football, MLB, hockey, golf, tennis, soccer, auto racing, boxing, MMA, and so many more sports for you. And now is an awesome time to sign up with the folks at FanDuel Sportsbook, and the place to go is FanDuel.com to get started. And when you get there, you get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. One more time, just visit FanDuel.com and check out America's #1 sportsbook. Speaking of, the Miami Heat are actually next. 43.5 is Miami's number at FanDuel. They won 46 last year, which is, of course, over this number, but they actually got a year older and, in my mind, pretty clearly worse on paper, just by losing Caleb Martin, who probably was a touch overrated at times, but still was a good player. And they lose DeLon Wright, who was there for a while last year, my guy, of course. And they really only bring in Kel'el Ware and Alec Burks. Like, there isn't much going on there. They do have Terry Rozier, which people kind of forgot because he got hurt last year. Yeah, that does kind of help them in some ways, but it also makes them even smaller and not great defensively still. People know how I feel about this. I think I'm an under on Miami. I just won't. I won't believe it. I just won't. I refuse to believe it. And I've been right all but once in the last, I think, 4 years on Miami. The one year they were the 1 seed, I look stupid, but every other year they just playoffs different. Sure, if you want to buy it in the playoffs, I guess I understand. But man, I will say this though. The market is lower than I thought it was going to be on them. I was excited about betting the under, and I'm a little bit less excited. I still would have the under on Miami, but not as fervently as maybe I thought it was going to be coming into the year.
Yeah, this one's a lean and not one I want to touch, especially at 43. It was 44.5.
Yeah, it's gone down, which people are agreeing with us on this one, I'm pretty sure. But
it's the fear, I think, is contract year Jimmy Butler locked in from the start. Because that's but I mean, that's really the fear. Because like Bam is going to be Bam. He's fantastic. He's going to be a defensive player of the year candidate. But
he is who he is. He's
really good, but he's not going to suddenly get you like 30 a night or something crazy. You know, he's just going to be a 20-10 guy, which is like just a 20-10 guy.
He's very good.
Good. But like it's Jimmy Butler, like if you're trying to make the case for the Heat, it is Jimmy Butler contract year, plays 68 games and is like super locked in. He also last year it got revealed in the Netflix documentary. He lost his father right around the All-Star break and just like was mentally just not able to get to the Jimmy level we're usually able to see him that second half of the year. Kind of see if he kind of re-engages this year a little earlier, contract year, a little FU mode for him, which is not hard to imagine him being in. And then it's like, is Jovic something? Is Jaquez able to be a little better? Like they have to be. If you're going to buy this, you think because they famously don't have power forwards in Miami. They just
and even no Martin. I mean, they like Highsmith, but Highsmith's a wing size player.
Highsmith's
like
not great, and he's solid. He's not a ceiling raiser.
No, he's fine. He's a good defender, but offensively very limited. And look, yes, I understand framing it around Jimmy. Jimmy's 35, man.
I know.
Like, it may not be
saying, and I agree, but I'm just saying, like that is.
No, you're right. No,
that's the case. Like, contract year is that, and then you think Jaquez is a little better than he was last year when he was pretty good, and you think Jovic finally does the thing in the NBA. Like that's been kind of what they've been waiting on for a couple of years now. Is like, and they have to have it this year. Like they need him at the 4 spacing the floor.
Because Kevin Love's ancient too. Yeah, Kevin Love's old as all get out, still useful but not great. They got a pretty good Duncan Robinson year last year. Hero is hero. Like I I will never understand it. It's one of my hobby horses, but like he was fine. Like he's a good player.
Yeah.
But and look, and one of the other things, if you wanted to say it kindly, he missed a bunch of time last year. And my thing though is I don't know if he makes them any better. I mean, I maybe he does, but I just don't think he's
talked about this for a while. Yeah, I mean, it's just yeah.
So there's that. So yeah, I mean, Rozier kind of helps them, but yeah, I don't think Miami's. Here's my summary of Miami. I don't think this roster would be viewed as a playoff team anywhere else. If you just put this roster in another city, no one would be talking about this as a playoff team, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Now, Spo's great.
Spo's
so maybe
one of the best in the
part
best.
of the reason Spo. Right.
100%. And the fact that they always are a mild threat to buy, but like it's like what do they even package?
How do they buy?
That's the thing. No, and like there's a chance that like the other side of that is I wouldn't say it's equally as likely, but not out of the realm of possibility. If we talk about like, what if Jimmy is just locked in? Like, what if Jimmy decides to blow it up? Always in play in contract year. Contract year, Jimmy can go two ways. Contract year, Jimmy can be
right.
I'm going to go out and prove it, or contract year, Jimmy could be like
ejection.
I'm out. Yeah,
yeah. I mean, especially with the thing about Riley. Riley's going to fool around with him. Like he wanted an extension that didn't happen, all that stuff. So I would not bet the over.
No, I would not. I lean under because mostly out of respect for Bam, Spo, and Jimmy when he's locked in. But like
if it was 45.5, it would be my best bet on the board.
Sure.
But it's not. So it's still a play for me, honestly, but it's not as eager of a one as it would have been before all that. All right, it's time. We could do a little segment here on the Atlanta Hawks. My thoughts are well documented. The number is 36.5 on the Hawks at FanDuel right now. It was actually lower than that earlier in the offseason. People have bet this up. In contrast to Miami, Miami's number went down. Atlanta's number went up. I agree with both moves, Robbie. We're moving lines here on the Locked On Hawks podcast. I like both those lines.
Day before the season.
Right. I've given out. Look, I've already given this one out. There's no mystery for me. It's an over for me. It's a pretty solid over for me.
Mm-hmm.
I liked it more 35.5 to 36.5. That's part of the deal.
I agree. We like getting any wins we can.
I'm going to let you take the wheel because I've already given lots of thoughts, as you might imagine. So
yeah, I mean, I'm with you on the over. My thing is, you move DeJounte Murray. I understand, like DeJounte, good player. He had a really good year last year. I think it's a trade that helps both teams. Like I agree. It was a good deal for both sides. The Hawks needed to add some of what they added. Like Hawks fans have seen this preseason. Like Dyson Daniels is a premier perimeter defender. That is what they want next to Trae Young. That was kind of part of the idea with DeJounte is they kind of thought we're going to get a premier defensive guy who can be, kind of share the rock, do all this. Didn't really work out. A lot of your turn, my turn offense, as you know.
Yep.
Not a very good off-ball player. We know what happens when you build an offense around Trae Young. It is a top 10 unit. Point blank. Like, that is what's going to happen. Like, as long as Trae's healthy, the Hawks are going to be a top 10 offense team. The question is, what are they defensively? They have some pieces. They have some interesting pieces. Can they all come together? Can Quinn Snyder get this thing to coalesce? We'll find out. But like Dyson Daniels, really good defender. Jalen Johnson has the tools. Clint Capella still can block shots when he's healthy. Okongwu obviously now dealing with some stuff. Like it's really comes down to the health in the front court for me as to like what the ceiling is for this team. But yeah, like, and if they can get a little bit more out of the wing, but like offensively, this is going to be a good group. And that's just what happens when you have Trae Young. And like, this is a low number. Like this is a team that's going to be in the play-in race. And this is a team that is not going to try to get
and there it is. I was going there and you didn't go there. That's the biggest thing.
That's always the last thing. Like if you're talking about a total in the 30s, the concern is, will this team pull the ripcord? In terms of like, if you're going to bet an under on a team in the 30s, you kind of have to believe at some point they would be willing to chase wins in the 20s, like a win total in the 20s to get lottery balls. They can't do this.
Yeah.
Hawks can't do that. So they are going to play it out. Does that mean they're going to be buyers? Like, come on, the Hawks. Like we know they're not going to spend.
I mean, they could buy, but they're not going to spend. If that makes sense,
yeah,
they could make a trade.
They could make a helpful trade. Like, well, that's the thing. And like, there are guys that they are obviously want to move. Clint Capella is very famously on the block. DeAndre Hunter is the new John Collins, where every year he's on the block. But if they move those guys, in theory, they're not moving them entirely for asset-driven deals. Like, they would like to get some stuff, but like, they want to be competitive. Like, what that means exactly in the hierarchy of the East, TBD.
They want to win games. That's the biggest thing.
They would like to be in the playoff hunt. Certainly feel they should be in the play-in. And if you think of that, I mean, they're kind of in like a little league of their own in the East, based on the win total. There's a very large they're just kind of in this little window above.
They are literally the only team. I mean, I don't have the update list right now, but like, I think there are a few wins.
I think it's 5 on each side.
Yeah, I think they're in their own tier.
And
almost
I think they're closer to that tier above them. Like, I think they're closer to the Miami's, kind of Indiana, like Orlando. Yeah. Like, I think they are closer to that than they are Charlotte and Toronto, who are the two teams under them. Like, I think it's and I think that's pretty clear. And so, look, if Jalen Johnson is who he can be this year, like if he takes the leap that a lot of us think he can, by being more of a focal point, by being more involved, by pretty clearly being the number 2 guy, 40's certainly not out of the question. Like, flirting with 500 is not out of the question for this team. And like at 35.5, 36.5 wins, like that's an over.
That's around where I'm going to be. I'm still deciding which number to say out loud on Tuesday on the last show before the season starts. But around 500 for me is where I'll be. And I think that they're in their own tier. It's weird. Like, even people that are low on the Hawks, it's so funny. Even people that I think are low on the Hawks have the 9th. Yeah. Because it's like, who do you put ahead of them? There's no, and if you try to put somebody ahead of them, I think you're just wrong. Like, the Hawks are just, the roster is so much better than Toronto or Charlotte or whoever you want to say.
Yep.
And I nailed the points, but defensively is a big thing for me. They were 27th in the league last year. Yep. They are going to be better defensively this year. Like, I don't know how much better, but they are going to be better defensively. And last year they won 36 games, and it's an over. So, look, if you want to hear more on the Hawks, I do a podcast every day on the Hawks. You're listening to it right now, so you can listen to all of the other thoughts. But Robby weighs in. Robby is on the over train as well. We'll see if that sticks, but that is the nature of the beast right now. Today's show is sponsored by BetterHelp. What's something that happens to scare you? For me, I'm really afraid of heights. I will admit that openly, but it's been that way for a very long time. And therapy, though, is a great tool to face your fears and actually find ways to overcome those fears. Sometimes the scariest thing is not facing the fears in the first place, but holding ourselves back as a result of that. And therapy can be helpful for everyone. And that is why I check out the folks at BetterHelp. You can learn positive coping skills, how to set better boundaries, and also be empowered to be the best version of yourself. I have my own stresses and fears that I deal with all the time. And we can all benefit from getting things off of our chest sometimes. If you think about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try right now. It's entirely online. It's designed to be flexible and convenient to your schedule, which is huge for people like me who are navigating time crunches all the time. BetterHelp is great for that. And all you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Take off the mask with the folks at BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA to get 10% off your first month with BetterHelp. One more time, the place to go is BetterHelp. That's better. That's BetterHelp. BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA. One more time, it's BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA. Let us go to the Charlotte Hornets. 31.5 is their number. Juice to the under at 31.5 on FanDuel. Last year they had a disaster season. They won 21 games, and they overperformed their differential to get there. But that was with all kinds of injuries and turmoil and trades and all kinds. LaMelo played 22 games last year. It's weird. Hawks legend Charles Lee is now the coach of this team. They've changed coaches. Mm-hmm. They've changed owners. They've changed directions. Jeff Peterson, our guy, former Hawks executive Jeff Peterson, is now the GM of the Hornets. Yep. And they're clearly in a rebuild for the first time. Like, they should have been before. but now they actually now they know they are, which is nice. But this number is fairly substantial. I mean, it's that 10-11 range in the Eastern Conference. What do you think of them? I don't know. I don't know what to make personally.
I have a lean under. The thing here is like how much more can they do to pull the ripcord, and like how much at some point I have to feel like with LaMelo, you kind of have to be trying some, like, you know, like
I don't know if they are though. It's so weird. Like
I don't know, but what I will say is I really like Brandon Miller. Very good at basketball. I don't know how much that impacts winning, but and he also looks really good in the preseason, which is the preseason. It's whatever, but the shot's for real.
I was skeptical of him. I'm trending wrong in the draft on the evaluation of him, but even then, I was more worried about the ceiling than the floor with him. Like I thought he was going to be good.
Yeah,
he's already better than I thought he was going to be this early. So that's a good sign for them. And honestly, he's pretty clearly ahead of LaMelo on their building chart now. I think.
Yeah, I think
as far as like marriage to the team concerned, like this is a different regime than the one that drafted LaMelo. That's true. Doesn't mean they're not going to keep him, but they're not wedded to him in the way the other one was.
Yeah, I mean the other thing is like the reason it's a lean under for me more than anything is like LaMelo just never is on the floor. No, like at this point, we are talking about 58 games the last 2 seasons. He played 75 as a sophomore when he was an all-star. But he played 51 when he was a rookie. The ankle issues are considerable and keep stacking. Like it's the same thing over and over. And like I said it when I did this with Sam, like hopefully this is a Steph Curry thing where we're like the ankles, and then it kind of miraculously goes away.
Figure it out.
And they figure it out, whatever figuring it out means. But you have to worry. Like, it's like every time this dude goes in the lane, you're just like, I hope he doesn't step on somebody's foot. Because it sure seems like whatever the ligaments, whatever, it's just loose enough at this point where that it just rolls over a ton. And so, like, even when they had LaMelo last year, they were 7-14 in the games that he played. Or 7-15 in the game. Like
he doesn't play, and he's not a winning player.
Right. They were not on pace about that. And like, I think LaMelo is a good player. Like, I don't want to sit here and say like he's bad, but it's like, is he a winning player?
He might be underrated now, actually.
I think I agree. And like, because he's kind of trending like, and I think Hawks fans can probably appreciate this to a degree. Like, he is a guy that the supporting cast around him matters to how good he is, because I still think his best attribute is his passing.
Yep.
And Hawks fans probably have the frustrations with Trey and like how Trey's been perceived nationally mirror to a different degree, because LaMelo, the injury stuff is very real. And like, that's another reason for it. But like, I think there are some similar. Trey is better. I want to make sure that I'm not getting conflated on
he is better. That's
Trey is better. But I think some of the criticisms that he gets in terms of what LaMelo gets are a little unfair with some of what he's been provided around him. That being said, it doesn't translate into a ton of wins when he's out there, and didn't with this kind of same group last year. I think they have to hope that if you get a full year of him with Brandon Miller, they both get better shots, because they both create stresses that they can take advantage of. But they don't add a young guy that you think is going to pop in terms of.
I mean, they bring in Josh Green. He's fine. He's a fine player, but
I like Mark Williams. Like, Mark Williams is like a very nice.
Is he ever going to play basketball?
But is he ever healthy? I'm not a Nick Richards guy. Again,
he's
this
fine.
roster's
Tijon Salon, lottery pick.
Not for me.
Probably a couple years away.
Not going to help you a lot.
Yeah, no. I mean,
this is a lean under for me. It's partially because. I don't know. I think some teams in the bottom of the East are kind of going to win some game, but like it wouldn't surprise me. Maybe there's 4 or 5 teams in the bottom of the East that are just all in the 20s.
I think it's a lean under, at least, if not a play under for me. I like Charles Lee. I know Charles Lee a little bit, so I'm a little biased there, but he's a first-time head coach, and we talked about this when we talked about the Lakers. Like, there is uncertainty. If you ever, I believe in Charles Lee, but I don't know. No one knows until he does it. No one knows.
I will say, like, the one thing
they are definitely, by the way, just one more thing, they are definitely in the spot now with this ownership and leadership where they will pull the plug if they want to.
They can. Yeah.
They will pull it.
The one thing I will say about Charles Lee that there does seem to be legitimate, more just juice when you see the buy-in seems to be early there from everything.
I think it's organizational too. The people are just buying into what they're trying to sell long term.
I think there seems to be they're not just hey, maybe we can bring Steve Clifford back and win 39 games. There seems to be a belief that they're building to something,
yeah,
as opposed to building to the play-in again.
Yep.
Can they do it? Who knows? Can they get guys into Charlotte? Can they get the right group? I don't know. I think Brandon Miller is a good starting point. But
even he, I don't think is the best player on a good team long term. Maybe he is. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't.
The best player. He's a key player for sure. Anyway, that's another discussion. But
yeah, it's probably an under. Yeah,
we're on the under. It's a higher number than I would have thought. But I think because they don't. This is one where last year doesn't even matter. It's just a totally different team because everybody's back and if everybody plays, yeah. But
here's the thing: if you could tell me that their main guys were healthy, I wouldn't be surprised. It's going to be 34 games, but and we're fighting for the 10.
Actually, it's a great way to end this. Is that you said 34 there? If they're healthy, it's still a mid-30s win team. So that's why I can't play the.
That's probably No, I'm with you. Yep.
It's just that simple.
Also, the East
everything goes right.
So brutal. The East is so brutal this year at the top that there shouldn't be a ton of just
they are better. I will say they are better than the dregs of the East, I think.
Yes. They have
it would not surprise me if they were the 10 seed. I think if,
sure.
They're, there's a drop off clearly after 9, I think, to everybody. But are they better than Toronto? They might be.
I think it's them, Toronto, and Detroit are the 3.
Chicago, Detroit. There's kind of on that range. And
I think it's those 4. Anyway.
Under on the Hornets.
We digress.
Last one. Boy, this is a situation. Washington is the dregs. 19.5 is the current number at FanDuel. It has gone down.
It's 19?
19.5 now.
It's 21 earlier.
I know. I looked before this podcast. I had the same reaction that you just did. I had it off the air, but you had it on the air. That's funny. Yeah. So they have now joined.
My numbers are 21 and 20.
They have now joined the Brooklyn, so they're now tied with Brooklyn. So when you and I talked earlier in the process, Brooklyn was the lowest. Now it's Brooklyn and Washington at the same number. So they've been bet under significantly in the last month.
Wow.
Part of that, man. By the way, that's the right move. In my opinion. So they won 15 last year. Just set it up.
They sure
15
did.
games last year, right? They had lots of injuries, to be fair, but they were terrible last year, and they lost 2 of their good players. Denny Avdija and Tyus Jones are not coming back. And
they traded Daniel Gafford in the middle of the year.
They did. They do bring in a couple of vets. Brogdon's there. He's competent. Valanciunas is an okay basketball player. He's not terrible, but they don't win you games. They're just there. And then they bring in Alex Sarr, Bub Carrington, 2 lottery picks. They signed Sadiq Bey, who's hurt. He will help them probably next year, not this year probably. They're awful, man. I mean, the only discussion is how awful. But everyone agrees they're awful, and they're going to be awful.
Really bad. Their starting point guard is Jordan Poole. What a decision!
I think you told me that.
I did.
I don't think I saw.
I did.
That
I
news.
Informed you that, and you.
And I don't understand.
You didn't believe me. You didn't. I had to drop you a link.
I still don't. I don't think. Even though it's been reported. That's. I think you're right. It's just I don't understand why they would do that. Maybe they're trying to. Maybe it's a taking move. Jordan Poole. Okay. Optimistically, I don't think he could be worse than last year. He was truly terrible last year. But the thing is, I would probably just start Bub Carrington, who would be awful. He's good. A rookie point guard is good. He would be terrible if he started him. They have Brogdon. I don't know what that's going to be like. If he's even going to show up, he's there. Koulibaly, I think, will be all right. But Kyle Kuzma is not the best player on a team that's competent, and he's probably their best player. I mean,
yeah. Also, could be traded at any moment. But
they would have built around them for reasons past their understanding. I don't understand.
I think I don't know about that. I think
this is another team. This is another team that has a clear direction now that they didn't have before. A la Charlotte. They started a year before Charlotte did, but. This is a front office now that understands the deal, and they're not trying to go to the plan.
Did you see the quote from Will Dawkins earlier this summer? where he said
probably, but I don't remember.
where they are still in the deconstruction phase.
I mean,
he said that
are.
out loud to a microphone.
That's accurate.
Have you ever heard a GM say that?
No, that's something you would say off the record.
Deconstruction phase.
But he's not wrong. I mean, he's
not wrong.
You know, Corey Kispert's like a competent player. They have some guys that are like okay on this team. It's just that the pieces together.
Corey Kispert is the type of guy you want on a winning basketball team.
Yeah, I mean, okay, this is the way I'll frame it. They have a bunch of guys who I'm confident are going to be bad, including Alex Sarr, who I think long term Alex Sarr might be really good.
Yep.
As a rookie, he's not going to be good. Maybe defensively he'll be all right. Offensively, he's not going to be good. Bub Carrington, same thing, going to be bad. Jordan Poole is currently bad. So all those guys are going to play on this team. You got Marvin Bagley on this team. I'll stop naming the guys, and then you have a bunch of bad players. Robbie, do they have a top 100 player on the team?
According to ESPN,
maybe Kuzma's at the end of the top 100.
According to ESPN, Jonas Valanciunas.
That's okay. Now you're trying to set me off on my own podcast.
I am.
I did a whole bit about this, as you might imagine, on the show. I cannot believe that ESPN ranked Jonas Valanciunas ahead of not only Jalen Johnson, but also Bogey. And by the way, also Clint. Capella's better than Valanciunas too. Anyway, he's not their best player. I think Kuzma's their best player, but the same thing applies. If Kyle Kuzma's your best player, you're not going to be good. There's no way.
It's a problem.
So, okay, but still, okay.
Yeah, dude,
bring it all back. It's still a very low number, 19 and a half.
This was a firm under at 21.
I think it's still an under, but I'm not going to play it.
I think it's an under, but I don't know if I can. I already played the Nets.
The juice,
19 and a half. I don't know if I can give out two.
I think the value is objectively gone at 19 and a half. I think if you got it early in the season, congrats.
They literally said they're in the deconstruction phase. So they are going to actively try to be as bad as possible. Like I talked to, I don't know why Locked On Hawks listeners would care too much about this, but I did a thing this weekend with Corey Kispert, and lovely individual, but we talked about it, and he was just like, he was pretty honest with me about
they all know, man.
He was honest with me about he's had to kind of rewire himself some, where he came from Gonzaga, which is he said to me, he was like, I came from a place that was all winning and culture, and it's been an adjustment. And what
a quote that is.
Incredible stuff. But he was just being honest. He was talking about he kind of has to be more pull guys aside and just have a conversation. Don't rip them, because the goal is to bring young guys along. He's like, it's weird I just turned 25, but I'm
he's
one of the vets. Yep. He's like, I've been here longer than almost anybody. You look at the rock, he might be the longest tenured Wizard.
I think he probably is.
He came in 21. I think he might be. I'll double check. I'm gonna double check that before I write my piece, but I'm pretty sure he is. And so he's but he said they know the game. He's in mid-January, we want to win, but I also know the most important thing is trying to bring guys along. You're trying to build something, and but even that, I think they just are figuring out what they want it to be, and what they're trying to figure out the foundation of. But that's tough with the guys they've got, because
you got a first time head coach. I know he took over last year, but Brian Keefe's first time head coach. I don't know what that's going to be.
You look at, but that's the thing is you look at who the leaders are. It's it's Corey Kispert, it's Kyle Kuzma. Is it Jordan Poole's not a leader? Respectfully, that's not a guy. We saw last year what he was doing.
They have two old guys. The two older guys they just got there.
Right, they're not able.
They'll be vets, but they're not going to go in. They're not culture guys there.
No, and so it's just a long way to say Wizards going to be dreadful.
Okay.
I am looking forward to Wizards Nets is going to be some special.
I was literally about to ask you.
I might drive down.
I was going to ask you to put you on the spot as to who wins fewer games between the Nets and the Wizards.
Dude, I'm going to say Brooklyn. Oof. But I don't.
Here's my thing.
Super confident in it.
Yeah,
Brooklyn's roster right now.
That's what I was about to say. I think Washington is considerably worse right now.
Yeah.
But Brooklyn's probably going to trade multiple guys. And I don't know if Washington's going to. I don't know if Washington's going to.
I don't know who they can other than Kuzma. And like
Kuzma and
he
maybe
didn't get traded last year.
Yeah.
But he's still on a descending deal. Like he's getting traded at some point.
My final thought is I would not bet the over on the Wizards.
Good God, no.
Do whatever you want to do. I wouldn't bet the over personally.
Not with your money.
The value's probably gone, but there you go. All right, Robbie, we've done it. Thank you for doing this over 6 episodes. I candidly almost forgot we didn't do the last one, and then I had quite a week of my day job, and you were like,
did.
"Hey, you got to do one more."
That's why I was trying to help out a little bit.
Thanks for doing this. Appreciate you. Plug everything that you're working on. We already mentioned Corey Kispert. We got to look out for that, folks. That'll be published soon.
I got a Xavier Tillman thing coming. Only the base names. Xavier's phenomenal, by the way.
He's great.
They were both. He went
to a terrible institution of higher learning, but I do like Xavier Tillman quite a bit.
He's a fantastic guy. Got those two things. We got a bunch of stuff coming next couple days. I'll have all of my win total things up on Dime.
Season preview time.
We'll have all kinds of stuff, and season starts, and we hit the ground running. So you can follow that over on Dime. You can follow me on Twitter at @Kalland, and
that's right.
The Puntcast is rolling right along.
Oof,
wherever you listen to the Locked On Hawks pod.
If you're a big college football fan, that's a place to dial in every week for all the feels. Thank you, Robert, for being here. As for everybody else, please subscribe to this podcast. We'll have even more than this before opening night. I'm blowing it out the 3 days before opening night. So stay tuned, subscribe to the podcast, and we'll see you all next time.